Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1 with financial advisor Scott Brown with Edgewater Family Wealth. EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com is the website. 407-648-1881 is the phone number. And the right foot, left hand man, Tammy, is here as well. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure to see you here, and it's a beautiful Sunday. And are we kicking it off the way we always kick it off?
You know it.
With the numbers with Tammy.
I think that's better than the song.
Yeah, I agree. You got unanimous vote on it.
Yeah, so what do you got for us this morning?
First we have the U.S. yield. It's an important number for us as wealth managers or people who try to help people manage their all their net assets and how they want to
When you
invest.
say U.S. yield, you mean like Treasury yield?
I mean treasury yields, yeah.
Yeah.
Those vary from 1 month duration all the way to 30 years.
Got it.
And they are important for the reason that they're considered the risk-free return.
Sure.
So if investor comes in and he says, I have an investment for 5 years, I want to invest. So we usually look at the 5-year treasuries and consider that as a risk-free rate for him.
Right. So if that person, so what is the rate on that right now?
Right now it's about 3.4.
So 3.4%. So anything if they said I want to earn 4, I want to earn 5, then theoretically anyway, they would have to take some risk beyond any number beyond that 3.4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That what we call is investing premium.
Yeah.
So if you want to put, say, instead of U.S. yield, 3.4 is considerably good for risk-free, but say we target return is 7.
Yeah.
So we have the difference. That's what we need to add on stocks or other kinds of vehicles we want to add
Risk
on.
assets.
Risk assets.
Yeah.
To get to that number.
Okay.
But we measure it against this for the same time to understand how much we performed, and that's your excess return as in alpha.
Ah.
So you're telling me you look at numbers and charts and don't just willy-nilly do stuff?
Well,
that is what we're telling you.
exactly.
We actually have a dartboard that we just chuck darts at every day.
Every time you guys give information, I'm like, you're giving away the sauce to everybody.
You can give all the sauce you want. People still won't do it. But, yeah, all right. So the relevance there, again, is if somebody says, look, I don't really want to take a lot of risk. What kind of return can I get? And up until the last couple of months, that was almost nothing.
Yeah,
right? It was 1 or 2%.
Yeah, they were beaten.
But now that number's kind of moved up to between 3 and 4%. And before you finish the numbers, Tammy, one of the things that people say, well, how does that affect the stock market, right, Ryan? Why does that matter? Well, if you think about if the risk-free rate of return is 1%, there's a whole lot of people that don't want to get 1%.
No.
Right? They're all right. Well, look, I'm not settling for 1%, so I'm going to put my money in stocks or bonds or some kind of real estate, whatever it is, crypto, whatever it is, and I'm going to try to take advantage of the risk markets because I don't want 1%. That's just not going to work. But as that number creeps up and it's now over 3% or 4%, which historically it's been many times, now less people are going to say that, right? Less people are going to say, well, now I'm getting 4. So I don't need to take risk in stocks to get 6 or 7 or whatever the number is, right?
Exactly.
So what that means is that's less flow of money to the stock market or the bond market or the real estate market, right? And that's, again, going back to the drug-induced coma that the Fed is putting us in, that's their goal. Their goal is to move money or at least reduce the flow to risk assets, driving up real estate prices, driving up stock prices, and, of course, driving up commodity prices and things like that, which lends itself to problems at the grocery store and the gas pump. So it's important that we understand this risk-free rate of return just in terms of what it means to the psyche of the country in terms of investing and where they put their money.
Exactly. The funds will be taken out from equity, dropped in. That's just a percentage.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Yep.
So another thing we want to talk about, which is something we see all over the news recently, actually for the past few months now.
Yeah.
It's the CPI and inflation.
And what is the CPI, the ever-present CPI?
It's the Consumer Price Index.
Ah.
So it's a measure economists look into to understand basically what is the cost of a bundle of goods that are out there.
That's what I got my wife last Christmas.
A bundle of
It's
goods?
a bundle of goods, yes.
That's very good.
How do you wrap that?
With a string, it's a bundle. Yeah.
Got it.
It relieves you from the searching what you want to do.
Exactly.
You
It's
get the
just
whole
a
thing.
bundle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get the bundle.
And she said, it's what I've always wanted, a bundle of goods.
Exactly.
We digress again.
So, and I think last week? Yeah, the latest CPI numbers came out. Everybody was kind of shocked because it was 8.6. They were expecting about 8.5. Well, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. What does it mean?
Well, me neither, but I can try.
Okay, give it a whirl.
So, CPI headline is what we looked at, which is the 8.6. It just measures the bundle of goods increase in price, right? And it includes food and gas. Now, there are two CPIs. There's the headline and core, right? Core does not include food and gas.
Which really makes people mad.
It makes them mad, but there's a reason behind it.
Uh-oh.
See, and that's where it is.
Yeah.
Gas and food are not affected by interest rate changes. The reason being they are affected by another bundle of different factors.
Yeah, a bundle of factors.
That's what my fiance got me for my birthday.
A bundle of
not as good.
Yeah, no, bundle of goods is way better.
Yes. So those two are very important to distinguish because you see the Fed increased rates, yet the CPI kept going up. Well, not the core CPI. It was only the headline CPI. The core CPI went down, as a matter of fact, from 6.2 to 6.
But that excludes energy and food.
Yes.
Right.
And the most increase is in energy.
Yeah.
Not even food.
Yeah. But food was flat this month, I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So people won't believe that, but coming from May to June, food kind of, I mean, it was way up before that, but speaking of a bundle of goods, we were talking, I think, last week about the bundle of groceries that Ryan was toting in his house. And the number was the same, but the load was not. It was much less, yes?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, but so the average American would say, well, so what? I still got to pay at the pump. I still got to pay for food. But what you're saying is that's not really a byproduct of the Fed changing rates or anything like that. There are other factors at play there, and I'm sure there are other shows that will carry on for hours about what those are. That's not what we're here to do, but there are clearly other factors.
Yeah. And last year, I want to mention that the Fed, whenever they change interest rate, they don't look at the CPI mostly. They look at something called PCE, which is the price.
You got all this, Ryan?
I'm writing all of this down.
CPI, PCE,
PCI, PVC pipe.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
So and it's a very distinguishable. Let's say differences between these two, CPI and PCE. Just to put it into very simple terms, CPI doesn't consider the weights of items. PCI does. So if you don't buy these items to the PCI, they don't exist. To the CPI, they do all the time, the same weight. So a very good example is you go and buy, say, a pair of shoes. That pair of shoes in April was $50.
Yep.
In May, it's $60.
Yep.
So to the CPI, that's an increase of about 20%.
Okay.
Now, to the PCE, it depends how much you buy that, how many shoes you buy.
So if you don't buy shoes, it doesn't count in the PCE.
It doesn't count.
Yeah.
Now, even more, if that pair of shoes, because right now we have a overstock of inventory, Target, Walmart, all of those, they're marking down a lot of items.
Is that right?
Yeah. So to the CPI, again, does not exist. Increase in prices, it shows you in the CPI number.
Yeah.
But to the PCE, because you had a markdown, if that $60 shoes now went on 50%, now it would be 40% cheaper in PCE, which is the actual amount you pay.
So what does the Fed care about?
The Fed cares about decreasing the PCE number.
PCE, they don't care about CPI?
Not as much.
Okay.
Not as much.
Because that's the bottom line is the PCE is a more relevant gauge
to the average American.
What's really happening, not just what could be happening.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
How much we spend, how much we go out, and how much I pay dollars on everything around you. And that's what you care for. That's what they include in their breakdown if you look into it.
Cool. Does it work like, is there like PCI, PCE, is there like a way to look at everything? Is there like if I want these numbers over here, I'm gonna go to the DWF, and it's
there's a gaming of the system. Yeah. I mean, it's you can game anything. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? So, if you want to say you've done a good job as a politician, you can find the numbers to say that. If you want to say somebody else as a politician has done a bad job, you can find them numbers too. So it's really just a matter of what's important to you. But I think the larger point Tammy's trying to make is that the PCE is legitimately counting the activity in the economy, not just the prices that possible activity could bring about, if that makes sense. So it's just a more precise, I would say,
Yeah.
way to determine where the economy is going and what inflation truly is at this point.
Exactly. And to how I say it, put a hat on it.
Yeah.
Look into the changes since March. So we are the PCI core is decreasing from March to April. Same for the PCE headline and the core and the CPI core. The only number that's up is the CPI headline, and that's because of gasoline.
And that's why it made the headline.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And if you want to get the line to EFW, that's Edgewater Family Wealth. The website is edgewaterfamilywealth.com. The phone number to get a hold of Scott or Tammy at 407-648-1881. And remember, they have that awesome content library on edgewaterfamilywealth.com. We'll be right back with more It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1 with financial advisor Scott Brown of Edgewater Family Wealth. EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com is that website. Number again, 407-648-1881. And you talked earlier about the federally induced coma that our markets are currently going into. And you said it's part of that's to drive down the insane cost of housing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I did good, Scott. Like I got in like in the luckiest way where my mortgage rate was like 2.75%.
Wow.
Like it's like I've been told like never even sell your house. Just rent it out forever
Right.
if that's what you need to do because you'll never see a mortgage rate like that again. Is that correct? Because right now they've gone up because of this, right? To like they're in the 8s.
I don't think they're that high, but certainly we're seeing 4s and 5s pretty regularly now. Yeah, well, I mean, historically that's a really good rate. I mean, that's a crazy good rate. We've gotten so used to that we see that as normal, and now we see a 4 or 5%. I mean, my first mortgage back in 1991, I think I probably was at 6.25, 6.5, something like that. And that's historically more normal. I mean, there were interest rates when I was a kid where, like, some people were paying 13% on their home mortgage. Yeah. But, statistically, 62% of the American population owns a home, right? So it's a big deal to people what mortgage rates are. It affects their lives in many different ways. But statistically, I also just read that of that 62% of the population, half of those people are paying less than 4%. So a lot of people were like you. They were very smart to do what they did when they did it. The question will be how silly they get going forward, right? Because, we can undo those good deeds pretty quickly if we say, well, I bought a house for $200,000, now it's worth $400,000, and I'm going to borrow $100,000 to go buy crypto or go to Europe or buy a Corvette or something, right? People can't stand prosperity, right? They got to do something to mess it up.
Yeah.
So, and then the problem then will be what? The rate will be higher, and they'll slowly chip away at the good thing that they did because, if you ask the average person, these 62% of the people that own homes, and you say, what's the best investment you ever made? The average American will more often than not say their home, right? And the question that begs is why? Is it because homes have outperformed other asset classes, stocks, bonds, commodities, whatever? The answer is no. It really hasn't. It's not been bad. I think the average home has appreciated 4 or 5% a year for the last 70, 80, 100 years. That's great, but it's not as good as the stock market. It's not as good as the bond market lately, with the exception of the last year or so, right? So then why is that their best investment? And the reason it's their best investment, because in 2008 and 2009, when the market went to crap and your $500,000 house was worth $300,000 when you at the blink of an eye, did you sell it?
No,
because you got to live somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like the family gets very upset when you sell their home and make them live in the street. So
even with stocks, I don't get the actual stock papers, so I can't even burn those for warmth.
No,
Yeah.
this does you no good. But the problem with the stocks is, though, at your fingertips, literally, you can sell them when you're unhappy with the situation.
Yes.
With a home, you can't do that. So because you have to live somewhere, you literally have self-induced discipline built into your investment program because you need shelter. It's a critical component for human life, right? So if that is why people say it, because through thick and thin, through good and bad, which inevitably comes in any homeowner's life, they can't sell just because they don't like the way the price looks today. And that is why ultimately they get through the highs and the lows and they get to a point where they make good money, and that's why they almost exclusively will say their home was the best investment they ever made.
my God, the day you're able to just buy and sell your home from a button on your house
Oh
is
my
the
gosh.
day I'm investing as a moving company.
Yeah.
Because that would literally become the greatest business of all time. Because I would, like, Scott, I'm a crazy person. I saw my house go up in equity, and I was like, we have to move now. We have to move right now. And my fiance's like, you are insane. Where would we go? And you're like, oh, yeah, there's nowhere to go either, even if I do that. So,
Yeah.
but I do that with the stocks. I definitely, like, I got an email from Robinhood. Like at like 2 a.m. It woke me up, and you know what the email said? It was a terrifying email because I don't really understand it fully, to be really honest. It is like, hey Ryan, just want to let you know we're officially in a bear market right now.
Well, thank you.
And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but how's my money? And now I'm checking my
2
stocks.
in the morning.
2 in. But you said you gotta wait. Don't check them every day. Don't do that. But here I am because I got the email.
So the old historical Robin Hood stole from the rich and gave to the poor, right? I believe this Robin Hood takes the rich and makes them poor.
Yes, I mean, we probably don't follow the same websites as far as for finance goes, but the ones that I do are mostly jokey ones, and they're talking about like the joke is just right now where we're like watching the end of our economy and haha and things, and they're actively fighting against. Like one of the posts was like, yeah, because of this with crypto. Like 3 days ago, I was a millionaire, and now I literally have nothing.
Yeah. Welcome to crypto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's and you can't, again, anybody, we've been saying it on the show for a very long time, and I've been saying it even longer, is, look, it's something. We don't know what it is. Most of them are nothing because there's literally thousands of cryptos out there now.
Yeah, it just seems made up at this point.
Well, it's always seemed a little made up. What I think is coming from it is there's some underpinnings of it, some infrastructure of it that are going to play out and be worth something someday. But yeah, it's just silliness. I was reading something. Somebody posted something. People get angry about the downturn in the markets and the downturn in the economy, and of course they want to point fingers at politicians, and sometimes rightfully so, I would imagine. But the person said, "Great, the market's down 10%. I can't retire." So, I thought about that, and I thought, well, how precarious is your retirement that a 10% downturn, which literally happens every 4 or 5 years? Because if you're going into retirement saying, I have exactly enough money to live to the penny how I want to live, like I've done the budget, milk, eggs, furniture, whatever, water, electricity, and I have exactly to the penny how much money I need.
Says no one.
So there's apparently this guy does. He's like, well, great, thanks a lot. Now I can't. Look, you should have you should be able to, when you go to retire, if you say I need $5,000 a month, you should go into that situation being able to produce 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, knowing that if something bad happens, and P.S., something bad will definitely happen. See today, right? Stress test your account. And if you stress test your account and a 10% market downturn creates havoc in your life, you should not retire. I'm literally pounding the table. You should not retire, right? So that's
the name of your next book, by the way.
You should not retire. Yeah, well, I've written that book several times. I got news for you. But so I just find that statement. I mean, I understood why it was made. It was made to point fingers at politicians and blame people, which is a favorite thing we do here in America. Is first identify the scapegoat, and we're good at that. But it doesn't mean it. The point is, if that's how precarious your situation is, keep working.
Interesting. Call me dumb because I am. But when you retire, when somebody says that, when you hit retirement day, right?
Yeah.
Are you then you're not pulling all of your money out and making it liquid? Or
No.
is that what people do? Because a 10% dip, I mean, how would it really affect you? You're just not getting dividends? I mean, what?
It's mostly affecting their psyche, right? So if you've done it right, and it's funny because people will say, well, I got $1 million, so I'll just spend $100,000 a year. Well, okay, well, that's $1 million divided by 100,000 is 10 years. Is that how long you're expecting to live? Because that's how long you have, right? So no, you don't say I have $1 million and I'm going to spend $100,000. No, you say I need $50,000 a year, and at prevailing interest rates, as Tammy just alluded to, the risk-free rate of return or some dividend. What does a CD pay? What are the dividends on AT&T? Yada, yada, yada. How do I produce that $50,000? How much money do I need in a bucket? And if you use A lot of people used to say 5%. Now they say 4%. You know, who knows what the actual rule is long term. But if you're reasonable and you say, look, I need 50 grand a year, I would tell you you probably need $1.5 million in a bucket that can produce at 3 or 4% that income. And yes, sometimes it's going to produce it, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's going to produce more. And when it produces more, maybe you should set some of that aside. But the reality is, if your situation again is so precarious that a 10% downturn in the stock market, it's all bets are off. Now you're the greeter at Walmart. Your plan is not very solid to begin with. So there's numerous ways to do it. Dividends are one. Interest is one. Some people will sell their stocks when they're up a lot. There's numerous. I call that Scott's rule of disproportionate returns. If you said I want to earn 6% a year, and 1 year you earn 30, I think we could call that a disproportionate return, and I think you should probably take some of that cream right off the top and set it aside for those years when the disproportionate return is the other way.
Yes, but that's all looks good on paper, but people are weird animals, Scott.
That's for sure.
It's got to be one of those, like, what have you done for me lately, those situations the next year.
Yeah, oh, yeah. No, there's certainly an element of that, but after 32, 4 or 5 years, however many years I've been doing this, it falls on deaf ears. I don't care. I told you what I told you. The plan is the plan. Let's move forward.
All right. Well, you are listening to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. If you need to get a hold of Scott with Edgewater Family Wealth, the website is edgewaterfamilywealth.com, and the phone number is 407-648-1881. And we will be right back with more It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. And we have our very special guest today. We have Representative Anna Eskamani here. Scott set this up. Please, Scott, take it away.
Well, yeah, we're excited. And Anna, thank you so very much. What area do you represent exactly? What's your little district there?
Well, thanks for having me. So we serve basically the heart of Orange County. So that's the city of Orlando, Winter Park, Belle Isle, and Edgewood. But with redistricting coming up, our new district will include Edenville and Maitland.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah. Ryan, is there anything you need? Anything you need from Anna right now? She can help you out?
I mean, how does one get keys to a city? I'm still trying to figure that out.
We'll talk.
All right.
He's been trying for years. So, all right. So I have so many questions for you. The first one I have is, and the one that's obviously right up our alley, is the financial literacy bill. I have several questions. One, how did it come to be? Two, it seems to have received bipartisan support. And three, what took so darn long?
My gosh, so this bill took about 6 years to pass. And it is bipartisan. It's one of those really special bipartisan moments where there is a commitment from all sides that we need our kids to be financially literate as they go into the real world. And this does require 1 semester of financial literacy for a high school graduation. So it is something that every student will have to go through in our traditional public schools. And the reason why it took so long, honestly, I think it's just bureaucracy. There's also a financial obligation by the school districts to pay for this course to make sure that teachers are trained to provide it. And there can be some back and forth between all the stakeholders on who's going to pay for the financial literacy course. And we were finally able to find that common ground, that agreement. We've been able to provide some additional support to educators in the state this past year as well. And I think there's been a realization from our school districts to state officials to parents that this is such an important class to be required. And, some of the biggest forces behind it have actually been bankruptcy attorneys, because they actually see, face to face, like the potential consequences of folks not being financially literate. And if you do go to a 4-year college, I mean, there are credit card companies just waiting for you to pass them.
I was that guy. We've talked about that. I was that guy. I was very popular at CJ's in Gainesville that night when I got my first credit card.
And so, making sure kids understand like the risk associated with that and just how to balance a budget, how to plan ahead. None of this is being taught in our schools. And thankfully now, 6 years later, thanks to the leadership of some lawmakers who are actually no longer with us. Senator Dorothy Huckel was a big champion for this. She passed away several years ago. So I'm grateful that many of us carried that torch to get this to the finish line.
No, that's awesome. So the curriculum itself, I mean, can you tell us anything about the curriculum itself, and how did we come by that curriculum?
So it would be crafted and approved by the Department of Education with public comment. And so the actual curriculum has not yet been approved because that will be a summer project to help students in the fall be able to start enrollment. But it really is centered around basic concepts of budgeting, how to manage a bank account, what are the risks when it comes to taking on credit, what is a credit score. And so just some of those elementary issues that, some of us are lucky to have parents that teach it to us, but it's just not the case in every family that you have that baseline support. And so the curriculum is not necessarily set by the legislature, but it will be a public comment process from the Department of Education. And of course, educators will also help craft that curriculum as they're going to be the ones who will actually teach it to their students.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said you made the statement that we don't know who's going to pay for it, but I mean, my experience is we're all going to pay for it if we don't teach our kids alongside calculus, which none of us use. Well, most of us don't use. I struggle to get through that one. But simple things like, again, balancing a check. What does debt mean to people? I mean, that's the biggest one. I think we need to teach our kids. And I don't know how we deal with the predatory lending that goes on. In the universities themselves, I mean, there's some predatory lending practices.
We need to make them like, sexual offenders where you can't be within like 100 yards of a school.
You have to wear some kind of letter, scarlet letter.
Yeah. Because I mean, like,
totally.
I had zero financial literacy coming out of high school, and I walked right into the old Altamont Mall, and there was a Dell stand there, and they got me right away. And then my financial plan became, well, let's just wait 7 years till this falls off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like literally what I did, because it was they just so got ruined and then moved around to various like collections agencies and things like that. And just if somebody would explain to me like what a big impact that's going to have on you, especially like starting out so young and being really on your own, and how this it's almost like having a criminal record in a way where you can't get anything done. And if you want it done, it's so expensive. Here's your 30% interest rate. Have a great day, sir.
Yeah, you don't have a risk-free rate of return anymore. I mean, that's I think, again, the debt component. By the way, I'm available to write this curriculum if you need me to. I could do that this afternoon.
Yes, I'll be sure to reach out. No, 100%, because we want to make sure that those who are actually practitioners are the ones who are helping to craft it, because it could be a disconnect if we're just relying on textbooks versus real life situations. And I really appreciate amplifying the predatory lending piece. It's unfortunate, but the influence of those institutions in politics is deep, and so we have to be really intentional in educating students.
There's influence in politics. Is that what you're telling me? Brian, were you aware of this?
I had not heard. I thought everybody was just doing a great job.
I'm learning a lot today. I'm learning a lot.
I wish it was always, happy-go-lucky and focused on what's best for people. But as y'all know, it's a lot of conflict. And so kids need to have the foundation to make informed decisions. I think that's the best case scenario in any educational setting, but especially something as important as financial literacy. It's always interesting to me how many interns that come to my office who have never even addressed an envelope before.
Oh, yeah.
And we teach them, where to put the stamp and where to put the return address.
I can never remember which side it is.
We take a lot of things for granted, right? And so something as important as how to craft your monthly budget, people don't know these skills. And so it's so important for that baseline to be established.
Yeah, no, I applaud all the lawmakers in the state of Florida for doing it. I see a lot of states are following suit now, now that Florida's taken the lead. So no matter what team you're on, I'm in favor of this effort. So we really appreciate it. Before we let you go, you've got a couple other projects you're working on. There's a couple other things I want to talk about. The first one is you were pretty adamant about getting this diaper situation under control. Talk a little bit about that initiative and how important that is to the citizens of the state of Florida.
I would be honored. So one of the bills that we filed this year and an issue that we prioritized for my first years in office have been to eliminate Florida's tax on diapers. So believe it or not, Florida still charges a sales tax on diapers for children and adults. And of course, this is a source of around $80 million in state revenue. So it does, pay for many of state institutions and programs and employees. But at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer, especially in this moment of elevated inflation, that we should not be charging essential goods like diapers to have a tax. And the reality is that many of our even government benefit programs don't cover diapers. I think TANF is the only program that you can use to buy diapers. But of course, TANF is also used for food and other types of essential goods. And based on data we have around the federal poverty level, a lot of families have to make a decision between clean diapers and feeding their children. And we were very, very happy to announce near the end of session that we reached a compromise with our Republican colleagues to put into the tax package a 1-year tax break on all children's diapers, which will save Florida families around $43 million and will start on July 1st. My hope is for this to become a permanent tax break and to expand it to adult diapers as well. But it very much is a bipartisan victory for Florida kids and to really help our babies be healthy, safe, and strong as they grow here in the state of Florida.
So that's twice, Ryan, I've heard the word bipartisan support for a bill.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's.
I remember
I'm
hearing
gonna
that
look
a long
that
time
when,
ago.
when Anna leaves, I'm going to get a dictionary out and see what that means. But
Well, and just so that you'll know, obviously we have a lot of partisan debates, especially in Tallahassee, and unfortunately a lot of it is echoing some of the national rhetoric. But I will say I serve as the ranking member in the Ways and Means Committee. So I do a lot of tax policy. It's one of my focuses. And I have to work very closely with my Republican colleagues if my goal is to get something done.
That's awesome.
If I'm just there to be the naysayer, which I have to vote no on some things, of course. And I lead with grit and grace when those moments happen. But there's trust between me and my colleagues. And in particular, on this tax break, I trusted my Republican colleagues last session to help me with this because I actually filed an amendment to last year's tax package to have this tax break for diapers. And, because of the because of the timeline, my Republican colleagues really stressed that they weren't able to make this happen. And so I looked in the eye and I said, all right, well, I'm going to withdraw this amendment right now because I don't want to put people on the spot and having to vote for something that I know you want to, but you just feel like you can't.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I'm accepting your word that we will get this done next session. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, I want to finish that topic. We got to take a quick break, but if you'll hang around, can we finish that? Because I want to talk about the new tax relief we're getting on necessities like gas and whatnot coming later this year. So I don't want you to run away on me, okay?
No worries. I'm here.
Okay.
You're listening to It's Only Money on Real Radio 104.1. We'll be right back, but you can go to edgewaterfamilywealth.com. That's the website. This is It's Only Money.
All right, Anna, we're back. You were talking about bipartisan support for some of these bills, and I just want to end that topic. But before I do, I want to emphasize what you were saying, which is, a lot of times when people leave the room, you guys are in a room together, you're trying to figure some things out, you realize there's a political appetite on one side or the other. But at the end of the day, you are trying to work together, and that's the vibe I got from you. And I want to be, no other show in the entire country says this, that pleases me. So thank you for doing that. And then before I let you go, because I know you got to run, talk to me real quick about the relief on gas tax, and I think some other, possibly food as well, that's coming our way.
Absolutely. So part of the tax package that included this 1-year sales tax on children's diapers also included other sales tax exemptions, including hurricane preparedness, including back to school. But I think the one that sticks out to all of us is a sales tax on gasoline. So Florida has a pretty heavy tax on gas, which does pay for our transportation costs. Road improvements are often paid for by this gas tax. Part of Florida's budget this year is federally funded. In fact, about 40% of our state budget is federally funded. And this does include money from the American Rescue Plan. So what we did in legislature was utilize some of those dollars to actually offset the gas tax. My preference was to offset it for several months starting in July. But what became the ultimate version was a 1-month tax break in October. Now, there is a question, candidly, if American Rescue Plan dollars can even be used for a tax break. And it's yet to be heard from the federal government if that is allowed. But our intention is to try to offset the rising cost of fuel and, of course, inflation right now, and finding ways to alleviate the burden of our families and our workers here in the state.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, whether it lasts a month or a year, it'll be a welcome sight when it comes. And as you know, folks are a little unhappy about the gas situation. So we appreciate whatever you can do there in Tallahassee. And Anna, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for everything you do up there in Tallahassee, trying to take care of our wonderful citizens.
Yes, and I'm super excited that you're going to be my representative now. Bye, Joy Golf. Have a lovely time. It's all Anna Eskamani for me now.
Wow. Well, so she is running for state senate, so you might still have her. You'll see.
I love you, Joy Golf.
He takes it back. He takes it back.
Edenville. Thanks for having me, guys. Have to come back, and we can talk more.
All right, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was awesome. I was honestly a little bit starstruck from that because I have also seen her on the news many, many times, and I really like the cut of her jib. Is it cut? Yeah, cut of jib.
It is the cut of the jib, yes. No, she seems like a very down-to-earth, common-sense kind of person, which we are in a short supply of these days in government.
Dire
need of people who are actually like to get along, like to participate in moving the ball down the field.
When it comes to like finance and things like that, people love to get mad. It's always the president, whoever, red or blue.
Yep.
But really, when it comes down to it, your life is mostly affected by local government.
I would agree.
Part.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that state and local governments have much bigger effect on your life than whatever's happening at the federal. I'm not saying it doesn't have any effect. As I said to somebody the other day, I think tone matters. Folks are mad about gas and mad about oil prices and mad about, well, people are just plain mad most of the time. But, and they want to affix that to a person, and it's always the other team, whatever your team is. But the reality is, I've said this about presidents for years, and I know this will anger some people on the other side of the microphone, but I think economies tend to happen to presidents, not because of them. Mm-hmm. Because economy's like an aircraft carrier. It doesn't turn on a dime. The guy doesn't take office on the 20th of January and then suddenly everything's ruined, or suddenly everything gets better. It takes years and years and years for policy to take hold, for things to change. So the one thing I do agree with presidents is their tone. Is what are you telling the markets? What are you telling the futures markets in the case of oil? How to feel about what your policies might lean towards. So there is some value in making sure your tone is positive and not creating a worse situation than we already have. But again, people are just, how it is. Somebody's to blame for why I'm not happy. And to be fair, sometimes they are to blame, but you still got to motor on, right? So I really do appreciate Anna coming on and chatting with us.
So what you're saying is, like, if we had a president and he like really messed up and like did some real like stuff that could hurt the economy, that wouldn't happen to maybe a couple years after that person's gone?
Yeah, I mean, aside from, try to think of one thing aside from maybe war that somebody could do in a day or two. I assume there are executive actions that could occur.
Yeah.
I don't know of any that have occurred. But certainly,
I just think like the only time I saw it happen like that was 9/11. Like the next day was a different day.
For sure. And that's something that nobody saw coming and certainly wasn't any president's fault, right? I mean, Bush had nothing, as far as I know. I'm sure there are conspiracy theories.
Oh, there's a lot of conspiracies. Do not YouTube 9/11 conspiracies.
I think aliens were involved. But yes, obviously a catastrophic event that we don't see coming, whether that's a war or a catastrophe or a hurricane. But those are natural occurrences. Obviously, 9/11 wasn't one, but it was a catastrophic event in our country. And yes, those things have a major impact on economies, but nobody sat down and said, well, today we're going to do this, and therefore the economy is going to crap out tomorrow, or today we're going to do this, and everything's going to be peaches and cream tomorrow. It doesn't work that way, as much as we would all like to think, well, if my person wins, things will be better. There'll be what is the saying, a turkey in every pot? Something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that some politician said that somewhere along the way.
That was an actual, I can't remember who, but that was their actual slogan.
Turkey in a pot.
Turkey in every pot. Or chicken in every pot.
Nice.
A turkey in a pot.
Yeah.
Too big.
Yeah. I think there's been some recent ones where pot was involved, but it had nothing to do with turkey.
But wait, so I thought the thing with presidents is that they didn't have a mustache.
Right. Well,
Didn't we
that's-
agree on that?
We did agree that our next president must have a
Must
mustache.
be mustachioed.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
Yeah, we do believe that's critical to the success of our country. That's how much thought we put into that.
Yes, but okay. So let me talk to you about the most frustrating thing in that is, and you said oil and gas and energy and food aren't part of inflation, but going to a gas station right now, I mean, every other gas station I go to has got a sticker that says "I did that," and it's got a certain politician on it.
Yep.
And it seems that these oil companies are posting insane record profits while charging this much money. So the fact that people think there's a dial in the White House that controls gas prices, which honestly, up until maybe 10 years ago, I also thought that. So,
well, look, I don't think it's in any politician's best interest to have high gas prices. I don't care who you are. And when you say I did that, I assume that sticker is a picture of the CEO of Exxon or Shell?
No, it's a guy. His name's like Joseph or something.
Yeah, Sleepy Joe, I think his name is. But yeah, I mean, again, people like to do that, and I'm not saying the guy's good or bad. I don't really have a dog in that hunt. But what I would say is that yes, the oil companies right now are very, they're doing the Montgomery Birds thing with their fingers right now in the dark room, going yes, 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 thank you very much, right? Because they're making record profits. And when 12% of the world's supply of oil is sucked out of the room, now talk about a catastrophic event, right? A politician did do that, and that was Putin, right? So he sucked 12% of the supply out of the market in a day. And in that day, Europe, Australia, Africa, the United States, Mexico, whoever it was, we all started bidding for oil because there was 12% less of it. So even oil that's produced in the United States, somebody else might pay Exxon more to move it somewhere else. Right? Now, again, I don't want to do this debate about who's to blame and what team you're on, red or blue or whatever. All I will say is there are multiple factors involved when it comes to oil prices and subsequently gas prices. And yes, tone is one of them. If I could give you anything, if you're a Biden hater, the one thing I will give you is the tone needs to improve. The tone and the direction and the thoughts that you're putting forward during this time of crisis. But other than that, there's very little. I know we've released some of the reserves, the national reserves. I know we've done a few things. We're begging OPEC, which is a waste of time because they basically get paid the higher the gas prices are, the better. And certainly you're not going to go to Shell and say, please make less money, or BP or Exxon. Could you guys make less money? They're going to tell you to pound sand. The market is what the market is. Aren't we capitalists? We're capitalists, right?
Yes.
Last time I checked.
Yeah, that's what they're going to say. So there's lots of villains out there, but it's not just one villain.
Let me ask you this. So do you find that people's politics regulate how they invest? Will somebody shoot themselves in the foot if they're super one way or the other on a good like stock or bond or something, but they're like, no, that company's on the other side?
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's definitely an element of that. We don't allow it. It's not allowed in my office. If you want to inject politics into your stock picking, you can go do that somewhere else. It does. Sometimes it keeps people from getting involved. They feel like the bad team's in office. They won't engage with the markets. Now I'm just going to wait till so-and-so's out of office, and it's both sides. I hear it from both sides. But yeah, it can. Somebody could say, well, I don't want to buy Tesla because Elon is going to put Trump back on Twitter. Okay, well, that's really not a fundamental reason to not buy a stock. And people do it the other way. People say, well, I'm not going to, back in the day, I don't believe in this electric vehicle thing is ever going to be a thing. I think it's nonsense. I think it's a scam or a conspiracy or whatever. Politics do play a role in people's minds, but they got to leave that stuff at the door when they come see me.
And that's why you want level-headed financial advisors who know what they're doing and don't get emotional about this decisions. You heard Tammy with the 1,000 charts he has and the numbers. They know what they're doing at Edgewater Family Wealth. And if you want to get a hold of them, I'm personally, me and my mom are going. So it's very fun. EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com. And they have that content library there. They got FinTalk with Tammy as well. The email address is EdgewaterFamilyWealth@RaymondJames.com. The number 407-648-1881. Scott, Tammy, have a wonderful weekend.
Awesome show. Happy Sunday.
Happy to be here.
This has been It's Only Money on Real Radio 104.1.
Yeah, and clearly people are rich, right? Or wealthy. You don't have to be rich. I like the term wealthy better. I mean, to rich reminds me of like the Monopoly guy or something. But, you know, they're people, they're regular people.
Now that guy I trust.
Yeah,
See, the problem, Scott, you don't have a monocle.
Monocle is, now, if you can meet a guy with a monocle, I mean, like, I'm all in.
What was his financial advice? He said buy Park Place?
Where is that?
Where is that? I can't find it.
Tune in to It's Only Money with Scott Brown from Edgewater Family Wealth, Sunday mornings at 7 on Real Radio 104.1. Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Edgewater Family Wealth is not a broker-dealer, is independent of RJFS.